Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from a hotel on the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy, Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at Thursday night here, just a 2-game slate here tonight in the NBA. Nate, do want to make sure you're liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We are coming back at you guys each and every weekday of this NBA regular season. Have our game line picks as well as these player props videos that we love to bring you each and every weekday. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have all of our great written content and the like on there for you guys all season long. Also have our great odds finder tool on there. That's where you can go ahead and make sure you're shopping those lines and offerings to the best of your ability all NBA season long. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into our game of the night that we're talking about here. Milwaukee is taking on the Sixers in Philly in this one. Bucks are +4, 152 on the money line. 225 right now is the total. I believe it's been bet down actually to 223.5 at the moment on most of these books. So let's get into everything Philly and Milwaukee here. What are you looking at to kick things off?
I'm just a little confused about the line here. It seems kind of like wrong team favored. I mean, the Bucks are going to be missing some key guys here early in the season. Middleton, Ingles, Pat Connaughton out indefinitely. But it's not like this is a random regular season, dog days of the season game where they're just like, oh, we got some guys out, let's loaf, whatever. Maybe it's because the Bucks came out so slow last season with guys banged up. I don't necessarily expect them to repeat that. I mean, we've talked about Giannis coming out of the gates like a bat out of hell, and him being the best player on the floor here, of course. Look, we were high on the Sixers as a futures bet, as a regular season futures bet. We're even higher on the Bucks as, your championship favorites because of Giannis, because they should have Brook Lopez for a whole season. And we talked about in that futures that they have a 73% win rate with Brolo since 2018. Have struggled a little bit without Middleton, but I mean, they did just finish the season without him, so they're at least used to playing without him. And they've got some experienced wings now. Wes Matthews, Jordan Nwora, a little more comfortable in his role. We'll see what we get with the rookie Beauchamp, but however you want to pronounce it, when he gets into the rotation here.
Yeah.
For me, it's mostly just about Giannis, and it's mostly about what the Sixers showed they aren't going to be good at early in the season here, that they really showed they need time to gel with these new pieces on the fringe parts of their roster. It was a lot of standing around and watching Harden and Embiid play a two-man game. And those guys had 12 of the team's 16 assists. Only 16 assists to 14 turnovers is dreadful. They allowed Boston to shoot 56% from the field. Granted, most of that from the perimeter. I mean, still 44 paint points to a Boston team that doesn't usually attack that much is concerning when now you go up against Giannis and Drew, who gets to bully either Maxey or Harden all night if he wants, right? So I think there's a lot of advantages for Milwaukee to press in order to be able to stay in this game. And so for either +4 or for a +150 money line bet, I will definitely take the underdogs just because of the value there, because I see this as an early season toss-up, and I lean more towards the team that has, the most dominant player in basketball right now, a guy who's averaged 32, 15, 6.5 in 8 games against Philly, and sure enough, the Bucks have won 7 of those 8 games.
All makes sense. No major qualms with anything you said. I'll be perfectly transparent. I'm not going to put any money on this game on the outcome of it, nor am I going to put anything on really a total of this game. I really, we talk about it. I really want a few weeks to sort of see what's going on in the NBA right now. I think there's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of change. There's a lot of differences in terms of some guys coming back from injury, some guys on new teams, and the like. So I don't love I don't feel super confident about either the Bucks or the 76ers in terms of the spread here at 4 or so. Neither do I with the total. All that said, I think the fact that Chris Middleton is out is something that we can look at. That's sort of where I start my analysis of this game is 7-9 for the Bucks last season without him versus 44-22 with him. I also just think it's just they're a different offensive squad. And I mean, what that means and the game theory that's sort of led to with Chris Middleton being out over the last season, obviously in the playoffs, and just when he's been out over the last couple of years in general. Giannis goes bananas. Drew Holiday does his best to score. It doesn't make him more efficient at all by any means. It just means he has a bit more volume and responsibility on the offensive end. He also gets a bunch of rebounds, so I like his 4.5 boards potentially. But I do look a little bit more inside the game at specific players in this one a little bit more, just because, like I said, the shooting isn't quite there. There's just a lot more forced on offense for Milwaukee when Chris is not in the lineup. And now you talk about the fact that they're not going to be able to make up for it with the guys that are injured, like you said. We're really excited to see what Joe Ingles was able to do with Chris Middleton out. How would he be as a sort of serviceable role player that and really step up a bit in the shooting and scoring ability as well with Middleton out, playmaking obviously as well. Connaughton also out, another guy that you would have relied on to sort of fill in for that scoring. So it just leads me to not feel very comfortable about what's going to happen. It just leads me to also feel pretty good about who's going to step up on that Milwaukee team. Obviously, Giannis, if you look at his props all over the place, you're getting things like 0.5 three-pointers made at minus 190, or 11.5 boards at minus 140, right? Or 5.5 assists at minus 150. Like, I don't want any of that stuff from him. I know he's going to go off, and I know he's going to do really fun things to watch. But I just, all those things are so high, and he's got to force all that stuff that I just don't know how, I think the offense just sort of is just not going to flow as well for that team. Philly, I would feel a lot better about picking them, obviously, if they had played much better in that opening game. It was just a travesty as far as I'm concerned when you have Robert Williams III out for Boston and Joel Embiid ends with, less than 30 points, basically less than 25 points at that point. Just ugly and not something that I like. But I do lean on them to sort of fight back in this one. I don't think they want to go too far into the season, losing to too many East Coast or Eastern Conference teams that they would potentially be playing in the playoffs and vying for a number 1 seed right now. So I do think that there's something there for them. It's not going to be the 3-point shooting for Milwaukee tonight. I think we've seen Philly really shut that down as we did last season. And it's if Milwaukee needs to rely on 3-point shooting to really score points off of Giannis tonight, I just don't see it happening, especially once you add PJ Tucker to that wing defense for the 76ers. I really like what they're going to be able to bring on defense, even against especially against a team like Milwaukee, who's a bit shorthanded right now.
Shorthanded on the wing, in the backcourt a little bit, but they have plenty of options to throw at Embiid with Ibaka and Bobby Portis, who, by the way, averages 16 and 9 in his last 10 without Middleton. That's another guy to look at for some props here, probably. But I mean, I think when you have guards that are well rested, like Drew can go 37 minutes tonight and press his advantages. I agree with you. I mean, I'm probably going to put a small play, if anything, here. It's just the value in place that's intriguing. I think Philly's going to definitely make some adjustments from what was really kind of a lackluster opening in Boston, and maybe it's a little bit more of team-oriented ball. So that's kind of looking at Harden to go under 9.5 assists or to not have a double-double, which is even money at DK, basically to go under 10 assists. He's averaging, a solid 22.5, 8 assists in his last 3 versus Milwaukee. He's a minus 37 in those games. So that's more to my point about Philly's awful defense. And I think you can look at the total as it gets bet down here. I mean, why not? I mean, Milwaukee's defense was pretty shoddy last year when they were missing guys. Mostly because they're missing Brook Lopez, but we still don't know he's how healthy he is. He's old at this point. They averaged 119 against Philly in those last 8 meetings, and Philly's offense was impressive. I mean, they put up a lot of empty stats. Sort of wearing the personality of James Harden now, it seems, if they're going to just fill it up and then not play any defense on the other end. So, I'll be watching it closely to see how we want to play these teams going forward. But I think as far as an opener, you're getting more value on a team that we believe can win the championship, and that has thrived in this matchup. And I guess, some capitulation to saying the Warriors and Celtics wouldn't just come out and pick up where they left off in game ones, because they both sure as hell did. And if the Bucks finished pretty strong, pushing the Celtics to the brink there without Middleton, I think they pick up where they left off.
That's fair. Look, it's combating sort of motivations here as well. Milwaukee, the motivation of the way things sort of ended for them last year. Philly, the motivation for how they came out in game one, really, of this season. Joel, has incredible stats against Milwaukee. Obviously, Brolo is not exactly a guy that will be able to hang with him in the meat department, right? In the beefy department, if you will. Embiid's a bigger frame, definitely able to handle Brolo down low. It's not like he's a Embiid stopper by any means, like 28 points and 10.5 boards in his last 4 matchups for Embiid versus these Bucks. I believe 3 of those didn't have Brolo, but the one that did have them in there, he still scored 29. So I still think that there's a reason that, like I said, conflicting things here, but I do think for Milwaukee, with a lack of Chris Middleton, at least that sort of narrows your focus of what you can depend upon for the Bucks a little bit. And that's kind of my main fun angle tonight. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe. Continue to follow along with us on our NBA journey all season long. And until we see you next, happy betting.